Have you read a story in the Draoithe Saga and come away with a classic case of immersion aftereffect? Let me guess, there are questions which remain unanswered even as the magic expanded, adding another layer to the dream. The grand desire to turn the page to discover what happened next ended with the last leaf turned. If you're asking where the remedy for the book Hangover is, you know the answer: read another story. But you aren't ready for the next tale, not yet. The dust needs to settle before you pick up the next volume. So you have found your way here. You aren't alone. Even the author can't get enough. As you hear this, Ophelia Kee writes on. But allow me to offer you a possibility, a reflection on the tale you recently finished, and a way to revisit the story to ease the story blues. Welcome to the Draoithe Saga After Party. Warning, spoiler alerts ahead. Turn back now if you wish to read the story blind.
Welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into the backstory of a very unique urban fantasy world. It's quite intricate. Our goal here is to unpack the foundational myth behind what the author calls the dream. And our source for this is Unlikely Kings by Ophelia Kee. Now, just think about this premise for a second. You've got a king of devils, right? He suffers this devastating loss. Then he creates this incredibly dark chaos magic spell, unleashes it, and then waits for 1,000 years. I mean, what happens when that kind of grief, that deep, unimaginable grief, drives someone to potentially tear apart reality itself, all for vengeance and for love? It's quite the setup for a cosmic saga.
It really is. And Unlikely Kings itself, the author specifically calls it the story behind the Draoithe Saga. It's framed as this epic narrative, almost like a medieval prose narrative, detailing the dramatic history of this group. What makes it stand out, I think, is the genre blend. The author describes it as, let me get this right, steamy hot, wickedly delicious paranormal romance, magical realism, and urban fantasy stories set in a dream to live for. So yeah, quite a mix. And definitely for a mature audience, 18 plus, it deals with adult themes, fantasy violence, and some explicit situations.
Right. Good to know up front. And where does all this actually happen? The main setting, as you said, is this magical realist Tyler, Texas, which is an interesting choice. And the main action kicks off around 2016.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the past is constantly bubbling up.
Exactly. Those details from centuries ago are crucial. They build the world around you as you go.
Okay, so let's really get into it. To understand this massive conflict, we have to start with the person at the center of it all, right? Lucifer Larue, the king of devils.
That's the heart of it. Lucifer Larue. He's this immortal devil, ruler of a realm called the Dorcha Blackest Black, it's described as in the Netherworld. And the catalyst for everything, the thing that starts this whole 1,000-year chain reaction, happens way back in 1016. Lucifer falls deeply in love with a human woman, Erlia Amazon. But she suffers this brutal death caused by an enemy he failed to recognize. Someone he actually thought was a friend, Bushiasta. And that betrayal, that loss, just plunges him into the state of anguish and grief. He becomes, vengeful and desperate.
So classic story of love and betrayal, but with massive stakes.
Yeah.
What was his plan then? How does he react?
His plan is drastic. Yeah, that's the word. He conspires with Erlia's twin sister, Hippolyta, who's the queen of the Amazon.
Right. Her twin sister helps him. Why?
That's a really good point. Hippolyta's motivations are complex, tied to Erlia, her own power, and maybe the dream's future. But yes, she works with him. Their goal is either bring Erlia back and get revenge, or destroy the dream to gain a reckoning against those who wronged him. Basically, if he can't have Erlia back, he'll burn it all down.
Wow. Okay. So how do they enact this plan, this destructive or maybe restorative plan?
Through magic. Lucifer wrote a spell using his blood and powerful chaos magic, his own blood. And then he just sets it free in the dream to wreak havoc. And for centuries, the spell becomes known as the Unlikely Kings prophecy. Some people are actively trying to make it happen, others are fighting just as hard to stop it.
So a personal tragedy becomes a cosmic prophecy.
Exactly. It's fascinating how that escalation happens, from one being's grief to something that shakes reality for a millennium.
And this spell, it sounds incredibly dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. The source itself gives warnings. It says, because of the magic used to create the spell, warnings must accompany any close inspection. It mentions that even changing the word order shifts the intent. It calls the magic slippery, oily.
Slippery, oily magic doesn't sound good.
Not at all. And apparently, only the Moon Guild Magi are known to be powerful enough to contain it.
So the author literally warns the reader, read the spell at your own risk.
Yep. Takes the idea of dangerous knowledge quite literally.
And we get a real sense of Lucifer's state of mind, don't we, in the prologue. His grief is just palpable.
It really is. He's holding Aurelia's body, and there's this line, what good was it to be a king and lose Aurelia? His pride and his arrogance disappeared in one last dying breath. Heartache and grief were all there was.
He just gives up everything, his throne, everything.
Completely consumed by it, it shows how grief can just level someone no matter how powerful. A broken heart reshaping a universe, essentially.
And this is where Hippolyta steps in again, right, with the bargain.
Exactly. She offers him salvation, but like you said, it comes with a heavy price tag. A very specific contract, almost.
What were the terms?
Okay, so first, Lucifer has to be cast into the void for no less than 1,000 years.
1,000 years minimum. Okay.
Second, chaos must reign if she is to return, meaning Aurelia. So destruction is actually required for her potential return.
Huh. That's a twist.
Third, Lucifer's kind, the devils, will not walk the lean deal. That's a key realm, unmated. Mating becomes crucial. Fourth, those who caused her death must pay. The vengeance aspect is locked in. And finally, Hippolyta makes her own vow. Airly will become the law. The magic will not be undone. I will keep the vigil. She'll watch over things.
Being cast into the void for a millennium. I can barely imagine it. What was that like for him? The epilogue touches on this, Ron.
It does. It sounds utterly terrifying. The cold, black emptiness of the void surrounded him, but the pain of losing his beloved Airly no longer touched him, which is maybe a mercy.
Or just complete numbness.
Perhaps. He floated in nothing and was nothing. Thought, emotion, life, magic, even his soul, it all just froze.
So the void isn't just empty space, it's like anti-existence.
Pretty much. The source contrasts it with something called onanity, which is pure grace, white light, total fulfillment.
And the dream is the balance between them.
That's the idea. The dream is the fragile middle ground, and the void is pure evil, all black, and desolate nothingness. Lucifer spent 1,000 years there.
Until he returns. 2016, just before Thanksgiving, apparently.
Yeah, suddenly he wakes up in a wine cellar, of all places, on the Amazon Isle. His senses slowly coming back online after being frozen for so long, and almost immediately he encounters Elria Sante.
Eldia, any connection to Aurelia?
The exact connection. And Elria is described as an altered fruit nymph, but her soul once lived as the human Aurelia Amazon. She was apparently recalled to the dream with some assistance from a totally debauched demon lord of lust and an accidental drunken binge, as you do.
Right. Okay. Does she remember him?
No, she has no memory of him or her past life, but he recognizes her instantly.
And that must be the moment, the trigger.
Absolutely. If you look the big picture, this is where the prophecy, that 1,000-year-old spell, really starts to ignite. It sets the whole Draoithe Saga in motion.
Okay, so Lucifer's back, Aurelia's soul is back, even if she doesn't remember. How does this personal story translate into restoring balance across the entire dream? That's the prophecy, right?
That's the core of the Unlikely King's prophecy, yeah. It's laid out across several chapters, and it's sweeping. It's a blueprint for cosmic rebalancing.
So what does it predict? Broad strokes.
Broad strokes, okay. The establishment of new immortal kingdoms. Places like Draoithe, Tantaloo, Erie Isle-Air, Lionsgate, Kingswild, replacing the old corrupt kingdoms. A changing of the guard, basically.
A whole new world order.
Pretty much. It also foretells the return of immortals lost from the dream, really powerful beings. Wyvern, Sphinx, Valravni, Nephilim, Eidolon, and then there are these really specific, intriguing hints about characters and events.
Like what?
Things like the King of the Orifice walking the lean deal, a Christo dragon claiming a blind princess, a stag king finding a diamond queen, archangels learning their true purpose. The unity of twins and a lost brother. It's very detailed.
Sounds almost like a tapestry of fate being woven.
It does. And a huge part of that tapestry is the idea of fated mates. It's central to this world's balance. The prophecy says, they often find balance in a life mate, and the magic from the past lives again. And there's this powerful line, as they were created, so shall they be mated.
So finding your destined partner isn't just romance, it's fundamental magic.
It seems so. The ultimate outcome promised is a balance will come to the dream, magic gets restored, and in love, all things are possible. In life, an eternity that was lost will be found again. It all comes back to connection and balance.
And Draoithe, the kingdom, plays a specific role in this.
Yes, Draoithe is pinpointed as becoming neutral ground, a place where alliances are formed, where this rebalancing effort will spread out from, sort of a central hub for the changes to come.
This idea of mates being fundamental, it sounds like there's a darker side to that too. The sneak peek at Lost 1 section seems to touch on this.
Oh, definitely. That section introduces a really harrowing situation. It reveals these women who were rescued from a character named Peter Elliott's harem. Apparently, Elliott had tricked them with drugs and warped their magic into accepting him as their life mate.
He forced a mate bond.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And in doing so, he severed their connection to their true fated mates. So now these women are trapped. They're in a semi-catatonic state, just fading. They're immortal, technically, but they're not living.
That's horrifying. So if the mate bond is corrupted...
It breaks something fundamental. It raises this huge question. What happens when the very thing meant to ensure balance and continuation is twisted like that?
How bad is their condition? Can anything be done?
It sounds incredibly bleak. They're not dead, so resurrection wasn't possible, but they're also not ill or tainted in a way that healers can fix. The source says the problem is in the soul.
Wow. In the soul itself.
Yeah. And it really hammers home how vital mating is for immortals in this world. Loneliness is described as the killing disease of immortals. Finding your mate makes eternity bearable, helps overcome the past.
Without that connection, they just fade away.
That seems to be the implication. It highlights how core these connections are, even in a magical reality.
So what are the characters trying to do for these women?
Well, characters named Luke and Eli are trying desperate measures. They tried dream inversion, that failed. They even consulted Charon Thanatos, the Grim Reaper, basically, who said the women essentially didn't exist anymore. His magic couldn't see any future for them.
That's incredibly final sounding.
It is. Their absolute last resort seems to be contacting the supreme beings in the dream. These entities, Cimmerian, Akiwa, the White Buffalo Woman, the Great Spirit Bear, who apparently created the dream and once traveled the cosmos.
Going right to the top, the creators.
Exactly. It shows how fundamental this fated mate concept is. If that bond is broken or corrupted, it threatens their very existence, maybe even the fabric of the dream itself. It's not just a personal tragedy. It's a potential cosmic unraveling.
And the potential consequences.
Yeah.
The source mentions something about Draoithe not needing a cemetery.
Right. Draoithe, being an immortal kingdom, had no cemetery because the Druid Pack, its people, should never need one. Immortals aren't supposed to just fade out. The text even mentions the horrifying possibility that Luke might have to order the dragons to just erase the wretched souls from the dream if the creators can't help.
Erase them completely. Not death, but erasure.
Yeah. It underscores the profound tragedy, a complete negation of existence because their core connection was broken.
So we've gone from Lucifer's personal heartbreak and his 1,000-year bargain,
Fueled by vengeance and love.
all the way to this sprawling prophecy, remaking kingdoms, bringing back ancient beings.
And hinging fundamentally on these concepts of fated mates and balance.
It's quite a journey. It really shows how, even in these huge fantastical settings, everything can stem from something deeply personal. Love, loss, vengeance.
Absolutely. What this deep dive reveals, I think, is how potent those emotions can be. They literally reshape reality in this story. And it shows how intricate the world's magic system is, woven around balance, destiny, and these crucial connections, but also how fragile that balance might be.
And you've seen today how these massive, world-altering events can spring from emotions that feel very, well, human or devilish, in Lucifer's case. That drive for love, the pain of loss, the relentless need for justice, or maybe revenge.
Right, it makes the cosmic feel personal and the personal feel cosmic.
So here's something to think about. In a world like this, where magic is so deeply entangled with personal bonds, with fated connections, maybe even with prophecy, what does free will actually look like? And think about Lucifer. How much responsibility does a being that powerful bear when their own personal quest for vengeance kicks off a chain reaction that dictates the fate of, well, basically everyone else across this entire magical dream for 1,000 years?
That's the question, isn't it? Where does personal grief end and cosmic responsibility begin? Something to definitely mull over.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your support. For more, visit opheliakee.com. Welcome to the dream. Sincerely. Okay.